Agatha All Along, episode 4. We are diving into spoilers right away, so this is your official warning. And go ahead and let me know your thoughts about episode 4 of Agatha All Along right away in the comments. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I definitely think it was one of the better episodes, and I'm incredibly intrigued about what is going on, including the identity of Rio Vidal, the character that Aubrey Plaza is playing. There were rumors for a very long time that she might be playing Mephisto and that Mephisto can actually change shapes, and that's why we might see her character pop up again somewhere in the MCU, but I believe, and there have been some rumblings about this, that this character is Death. And the reason I think this is because there are many signs in this episode that are very subtle, but once you realize what they are, then they really open your eyes to the fact that Rio might actually be the character from Marvel Comics, Death. And side note, in the comics, Death and Deadpool have a pretty big relationship with each other, although I'm not sure that will happen in the MCU. But Agatha, episode 4, we're going to go over the really important parts that you need to know. And we'll start with all of the clues that Aubrey Plaza's character is Death, and she might have had some dealings with the death of Agatha's son. It was made very clear in this episode that Rio did something to Agatha that really hurt her. And obviously they are ex-lovers. The show ended with the two of them almost kissing, but it was interrupted by Rio telling Agatha that Teen is not her son. But how does she know that? And why would Agatha think that Teen is her son? Well, episode 4 really is a love story in two different ways. One is really sweet, and one is really messed up, if my theory about what happened is correct, which we're about to dive into. And I actually think that Agatha All Along ends with a big reveal telling us that the Scarlet Witch is alive, and they give us absolute confirmation and surety if this character really is Death. But let's start at the beginning. Sadly, Mrs. Hart passes away, and although she wasn't a Green Witch, the Coven needs a Green Witch. So they summon one. And based off of everything each witch said about what they wanted in the Green Witch, Rio was the best and closest candidate. She was literally in the neighborhood, so she was literally the closest. That's why she appears. And Agatha says, how? Rio says, I was in the neighborhood. She was speaking quite literally, and she further explains this in the episode, where she says it wasn't her choice. She said, it wasn't up to me. Magic, as it does, took the path of least resistance, carried the most appropriate candidate down or up. So she was summoned, particularly her, because she literally fit the requirements of the summon spell. And basically out of all of the witches that fit that requirement, she was the closest out of all of them since she just visited Agatha. But about that sentence, she says, most appropriate candidate down or up. I think that sentence right there could be one indicator that she is Death. Down or up as in heaven or hell, which is something Death would deal with. Now, in the same scene in the recording booth where she's telling Agatha it really wasn't her choice, she was summoned there, we have another big indicator that she is in fact actually Death. In that same scene, Agatha tricks her into revealing her plan. Rio says Agatha's going to kill, and Rio will then collect the bodies. Why would anybody need to collect the bodies unless you were Death? But don't worry, we have more clues to go. Now, the demon that curses, or I should now say cursed, Alice, was flying around and attacked Teen, threw him through glass, and some glass got into his side, and it almost killed him. He is literally about to die. And Agatha was really concerned for Teen when he got hurt. She was desperately concerned for him. And if you watched my last breakdown video about episode 3, I was already theorizing that Agatha thought that Teen might be her son. It was said that she gave up her son maybe to Mephisto to trade for the Darkhold, and I thought that she may think this is him reincarnated. But as he's dying, Lilia starts to try and comfort Agatha, saying that he's young and he's strong and he could probably survive because he's young and strong. But Agatha interrupts and says, don't. And then she looks at Rio. She looks very desperately at Rio, and she says, don't. And I believe what is happening here, she is looking at Death and saying, don't. Please don't take him. Don't take his life. Don't kill him. And then it shows Rio even after she says this, again further implying that she has a say in this. She is Death. So even if she doesn't control if he lives or dies, if he dies, it's her. It's her in charge of that. But then Jen saves him, and Agatha looks at Rio again. And Rio, if you notice in the scene right here, actually looks kind of disappointed if you look very closely. And I would imagine that if you are Death, then you probably look forward to people dying. So that could totally explain why she looks disappointed in the scene right here. And like I mentioned, it is also very interesting that at the very end of the episode, Rio can confirm that Teen is not her son. She could tell, obviously, since Agatha was so concerned for him, that Agatha was possibly thinking that he could be her son, but it's really interesting that Rio knows with a surety. She tells Agatha, he's not your son. And if you notice, after Agatha hears this, she thinks for a second, but then she looks at Rio and gives her a nod. This is indicating that she accepts what Rio says as the truth. And since the two of them obviously have a past and she was trying to kill Agatha in the first episode, why would Agatha just simply accept what Rio says as the truth? Well, it's most likely because she knows Rio is death and that Rio would know if her child's spirit was somehow reincarnated, which leads me to my theory that she's the one who put the sigil on Teen, and also to my Scarlet Witch theory, which we'll talk about after this one. But in this episode, they allude that whoever cast the sigil also works on them as well, meaning they won't remember that they cast it. So Agatha says that she might have cast it, but I doubt it. I'm assuming Rio probably cast it, knowing what he is, knowing that he could be the reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch. Because here's my theory, if she can sense that he's not Agatha's son, she probably knows that he's Wanda's son, and for some reason, at least in the present time, she doesn't want Agatha to know that Teen is Wanda's son. Perhaps she has some sort of a plan, not really sure what that could be at the time, but clearly she wants Agatha for something. Perhaps she is actually trying to kill Agatha so she could be with her, and maybe the Scarlet Witch is the way to do that. Or maybe the Scarlet Witch's son is a way to do that. But that leads me to my next theory about the Scarlet Witch. Let's assume that Rio is death. Well, then she would know if the Scarlet Witch is truly dead or alive. And I believe at the end of the series, we might not see the Scarlet Witch, but I bet something along the lines of this happen. At the end, Agatha says something out loud about the Scarlet Witch being dead, and Rio, having revealed to everyone in the show already that she is actually death, says, "No, she isn't. I haven't taken her yet." I wouldn't be surprised if all of this ends up happening, but let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Now, moving on to the curse, and as I mentioned, this episode really is kind of a love story. Yes, kind of about the past of Rio and Agatha, but also about Alice and her mother, Lorna, and it's actually quite sweet. We learn that Alice has a generational curse put upon her, and we've been kind of learning about this throughout all the episodes. She even had the terror hallucination of her mother telling her that her grandmother died, her mom is next, and that her mom can't protect her. And as we learn in this episode, the curse ended up killing her mother in a hotel. She said it was a fire, but we learned that she essentially burst into flames because of the curse. Agatha explains that the curse should have made her, Alice, burst into flames a long time ago. So that's how her grandmother died, that's how her mother died, and that's how she should die to the curse that is placed upon her and her family. Now, the curse is essentially a demon that roosts on her shoulders. This is why when the curse timer starts, she says she feels lighter. The demon physically jumps off of her, and we can hear the demon flying around. That's also why she had the marks on her shoulders, and she confirmed that her mother had them as well. And everybody else who gets the curse get the burnt marks on their shoulders because the demon literally jumped on their shoulders to curse them. However, in a really sweet reveal, we find out that her mom traveled so much, touring the world, playing her famous rendition of her version of The Witch's Road to actually protect Alice. As Agatha explains, it is actually a protection spell, and since it was so famous and her mom worked so hard touring, getting people to hear it and repeat it, at any point in time someone is playing that song somewhere, therefore providing protection to Alice. That's why she hasn't died to the curse yet. Her mother immortalized, via her rendition of the song, a protection spell for her daughter, Alice. Again, just super sweet, but it's also instructions for her. Remember, it's her rendition of the song, so she added some words to it. And if we go over the lyrics, we can see how some of these words were specifically meant for her daughter. They were guiding her. The song starts out that they play, "I have learned a lesson of all that's foul and fair. Our love was forged in fire, water, earth, and air. The spell is cast. How long it lasts, I cannot divide." So right there, she is saying the spell has been cast on their family, the generational curse, and how long it's going to last, she doesn't know, but she does know a way to get rid of it, which is where the next lyrics come in. They're a guide to her daughter, Alice. She says, "The road is there, and so I dare to risk this heart of mine." And then we get the regular lyrics, down the witch's road, down the witch's road. Follow me, my friend, to glory at the end. I have known the power of midnights in the wood. I danced inside the circle of all that's bad and good. The deed is great, the trials wait for those that seek the prize. Tame your fears, the door appears to love that never dies. This right here is basically saying that, hey, whatever your heart desires, you can get on the witch's road. You will have to go through trials and you'll have to face your fears. The deed is great to go through the witch's road, but for those that seek the prize, tame your fears, and the door appears to love that never dies. So this is also a part of the original song that opens the door, but it still is instructions at the same time. The road will give you what you want. As the song goes on, we hear more lyrics that are from Lorna to her daughter Alice that say, "If I can't reach you, let my song teach you. All you need to keep our love alive. If I can't hold you, remember what I told you. It's the only way we survive." Here she is clearly talking about the witch's road. The song that she spent so much of her life devoted to playing is actually the answer to the family curse, the generational curse. That's how you get rid of it. And that's what happens in this scene. They get rid of the generational curse. They kill it. But the final lyrics are actually quite interesting. They say, "Wherever it may bend, I'll see you at the end." Now, I don't think her mother is alive. She obviously died. But the way the road has been depicted, it kind of sounds like once you complete all the trials, you get what you desire the most. Well, the curse has already been lifted and they're not done with the trials yet. So at the end, wherever it may bend, could she get her mother back? Could the road, using witchcraft and magic, bring her mother back to life at the end? That's what I'm wondering. And that's honestly what I hope. Overall, I think this was a really great episode. You can see the witches bonding. You can even tell that Agatha is becoming fond of some of them, especially after Jen saved who she thought might have been her son's life. But I am definitely very intrigued now with where the story is going to go, especially with Agatha's son, the Darkhold, Mephisto, and some deal that might have been made for her son and the Darkhold. Plus, not to mention Teen, we know is Billy, Wanda's son, and I want to know what's going to happen with Death and her role and everything. But go ahead, let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments down below. What do you think? Let me know. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date with Agatha All Along and, of course, the MCU. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.